Here are my audience members. Have you ever known someone who you didn't necessarily know a lot about, but you still looked up to them as an inspiration? I have, and his name was Harold Walbrown. Harold Walbrown was a kind-hearted, valiant, honorable man. He fought for our country. He was a successful business owner and a wonderful husband. Harold Walbrown was also known as my great-grandfather. Harold was born March 2nd of 1919 in Akron, Ohio, and he was a direct descendant of Morgan, who was known in history as the first settler and was now known as West Virginia. He grew up in Elizabeth, West Virginia. He was drafted in World War II on February 1st, 1945. After his discharge in the war, he started working at Goodyear in Minnesota. He then returned to Parkersburg in 1949, where he worked in many tire shops, including Montgomery, Ward's, and Sears. He then decided to run and own his own business called Walbrown Tires, which he ran and owned for many years. When he returned to Parkersburg is when he met my great-grandma. The story of when they met was he was riding his Indian motorcycle and he kept bugging her until she finally went on a date with him. They were together many years prior and eventually got married. Harold and Grandma Ray were married for 75 years. Can you imagine how long 75 years is? They had a relationship like no other. Grandpa Harold spent most of his time taking care of my Grandma Ray and eating at Chinese or Mexican restaurants. I remember every Saturday at 11 a.m., him and Grandma would eat at Don Emilio's, and every Christmas, they would be at the Super China Buffet. My dad and I would always meet up with them and surprise them because we always knew where they would be and what time they would be there. I found it amusing how they had the same daily routine. Him and Grandma Ray got their own house on Washington Avenue, where they lived for many years. Then they ended up moving to a small apartment in Parkersburg, West Virginia, which was called Lakeview Estates. My dad and I would always go visit them, and I always enjoyed hearing Grandpa Harold's stories about the war and his everyday life in general. He was such an interesting person to talk to. I found it interesting to know someone who fought in a war and was still alive to talk about it. Harold was such an honorable and inspiring person. He had such a good heart. He was such a loving and caring husband to Ray and would always make sure she had what she needed. He would put her needs before his own and put her before himself. They were together since they were very young and had such an inspiring relationship. He would go out of his way to help just about anybody. Unfortunately, putting Grandma Ray's needs before his own had a negative impact on his health. In 2015, he fell in his apartment and was taken to the hospital where he spent many months in critical condition, and sadly passed away peacefully at Marietta Memorial Hospital July 19, 2015. So many people loved Harold. He was such a kind-hearted person and would do anything for anyone. I will always remember his kindness and stories that he would tell. He was a true inspiration as a person that I would like to be. Someone who helps people out as much as they can, and to have an inspiring and long-lasting relationship like him and Grandma Ray had. He wasn't just my great-grandfather. He was much more than that. He was a kind-hearted, valiant person, and a war hero who will never be forgotten.